we have found a way to actually help organizations maximize their health care options while minimizing the cost of providing those services to their employees. So we found a way to say, yes, we know we have to pay the taxes. The question is, at what rate? So the rate stays the same, but at what volume do I have to pay those dollars to the federal government? So that's where we come in, and we work with organizations to design it so that it works in both, to the benefit of both the employer, the employee, as well as to their to that commitment to help and build ways for folks to find retirement dollars, or to have retirement dollars available to them, as well as have health care coverage once they do retire.
Quick favor before we jump in. It always surprised me that a large percentage of people who listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you're a commercial real estate operator, investor, or builder who values conversations like this around deals, capital, and technology, please take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. It's a simple, free way to support the show. My commitment to you is that my team and I will continue bringing you higher level operators, stronger conversations, and real execution level insights every single week. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. Welcome back to the AI Edge podcast, where we talk with operators and founders around systems that make businesses run and the mistakes that quietly drain margin when nobody's paying attention. Today's guest is Dr. Sean Wilson, founder of Manoah Consulting. Sean helps organizations uncover what he calls the silent tax leak, the hidden payroll dollars companies lose every year. Then he helps them redesign benefits so employees are happier and the businesses keep much more cash, often without spending more. If you've ever felt squeezed between raising healthcare costs and keeping promises to your employee, this episode is for you. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Louis. I appreciate that. And it's good to be here today. Where I am here in New Orleans, it's cold by our standards. With a warm 52 degrees, according to the North standards, but it's a beautiful day out, so I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate you having me here today on the AI Edge.
Fantastic. Good to have you here, Sean. I'm up in the Northeast, and it was -3 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. Brutal,
Wow.
brutal.
Yes.
So,
But you made it through, and you're here now.
fantastic. When you say silent tax leak, what are you actually pointing to? And why should CFO, HR leader, or business owner care right now?
Yeah. So one is oftentimes we are bidding the expense or the increases in healthcare costs with who's in our employees. So it's like, if I can offset that health benefit, I can then maybe if I get rid of one person or I put somebody in a part-time status, I can actually have a little bit of, I'll call it breathing room, to have the conversation around providing better benefits for employees. I believe there's an option and an opportunity for business leaders to actually kind of make better decisions while also improving the care and the benefits that they do have that's already in their stead. We're about redesigning it so that it works for both. That is, it works for the employer and it also works for the employee, with neither one actually carrying much of.
Sean, what does leak look like in plain English?
That leak is more around. We have systems that have been in place for years. I'm sorry, the leak looks like we've had systems in place for years. So Social Security, FICA, have been around since, I believe, 1960s and some change, early or 50s and some change. I can't remember now. And I should know this because I am also a tax person. But, nonetheless, people pay into it with the idea of having retirement at a certain point in time, or having disability should they become unable to work, and also have healthcare coverage at a certain point in time. So the leak is that those systems have been designed to help individuals get to a point of retirement and have healthcare coverage during that time. For the employer, the understanding is that we are paying into that system irrespective of who we have in our employee. So for every W-2 employee, there's an opportunity for this thing to sit out there where we're like, well, I gotta pay it. They tell me what that percentage is, and we end up paying it. Not because we don't want to, or not because we don't, not because we're like, I want to abscond the system in some kind of way, but it's more like I gotta pay it because the government says. There's a way that we can actually look at how that those funds are being sent and at what rate they're being sent to support that system and structure that's in place. So that leak is, I'm sorry, it still may sound a little bit sort of like, okay, Sean, you said a lot, but what are you really saying? So imagine we all, for every W-2 employee again, we have to pay 7.65% of every dollar that employee makes. So for $100, that's $7.65 that the employer pays. That's $7.65 that the employee pays. So together, you're talking about 15.3% that is going directly to the federal government for every dollar that an employee makes. We have found a way to actually help organizations maximize their health care options while minimizing the cost of providing those services to their employees. So we found a way to say, yes, we know we have to pay the taxes. The question is, at what rate? So the rate stays the same, but at what volume do I have to pay those dollars to the federal government? So that's where we come in and we work with organizations to design it so that it works in both to the benefit of both the employer, the employee, as well as to their to that commitment to help and build ways for folks to find retirement dollars or to have retirement dollars available to them as well as have health care coverage once they do retire.
Why do smart teams miss it?
Because we're told too often, it's like, well, you have to pay this tax. And if you don't pay this tax, there are large consequences for not doing so. And the answer is yes, there are incredible consequences if you don't pay your tax bill to the IRS or to the feds. However, the question is about how do you maximize your benefit, right? So how do you take the benefits that an employee already has and how do you bring that to the forefront so that you can minimize the amount that you're actually paying? So imagine in a scenario where you're able to say, employee makes $100. I know I have a 7.65 percent commitment to the government, but what if I can take that $100 and I can reduce it by an amount that actually keeps that percentage that I have to pay the same, but I'm actually paying fewer dollars. And so the difference between what I actually would have paid on that 100 to what I would be paying if I took this other benefit, let's say that's $10, right? So if I can reduce that by $10, I'm not paying $7.65. So I'm paying if the employee is now being taxed on $90, I'm now only paying $6 and some change to the federal government, which means I now save a dollar every $100 that I'm paying for an employee. So that helps me reduce my outflow of cash and allows me to actually bank a little bit more cash in my organization. And I'm also reducing my expense as well. So it helps me to also become a more profitable organization. And so the reason many companies miss it is because they're just like, well, we have to pay it and we're just gonna make sure that we pay that amount because we don't want the IRS knocking on our door saying, by the way, you didn't pay your tax bill. No, we definitely want you to pay your tax bill because it's the right thing to do. And also, we want to make sure that what we're offering you keeps you in compliance with all laws that are associated with payroll taxes.
Sean, you shared examples like 1,000 employees saving $500,000 in 1 year. Give us the story. What was the company? What was broken and what changed?
Right. So I'll break that down just a little bit because sometimes when you talk larger numbers, and you start to talk like hundreds of millions of dollars. So think of it this way: there is an air conditioning company, right? So they are it's perfect time of year, right? So we need a lot of heat. Or the HVAC company is like we want to make sure the heater's working. Want to make sure that we're getting the warmth that we need in the spaces in our home. So imagine that company has and I'm just going to say 100 employees. With 100 employees, their average pay per employee is about $70,000. So for that organization, 100 employees, $70,000, that's over $700,000 a year in payroll that's happening. Have $1 million a year in payroll. That is $76,000 that it has to pay every year just to the IRS for taxes. With our process, with this one process, this HVAC company, with their process in place, they are now reducing what they would have paid to the IRS by over $640 per employee. So for each employee, they're reducing their tax liability by $640. So that's 640, $64,000 a year that they are saving because they're using this tax strategy to reduce their expenses while they were in the process of increasing the benefits that the employees had. I'll make this a little bit simpler. HVAC company, 100 employees, save $640 per employee per year. That $640 is about $64,000 in savings. Instead of paying to the IRS the total 76,000 on behalf of the organization, they're now paying under $36,000 because we're able to save them the $640. So we've been able to reduce their cash outflow while at the same time improving their employees' access to healthcare coverage. So it benefits the employee. So the employee is not seeing any increases in their share of the health insurance. They're actually seeing a reduction because in this instance, the employee also sees a reduction in what their taxable income is as well. And then also, so that employee now, what many of them are seeing, if they do nothing else, is they're seeing about a 5% increase in their take-home pay every pay period. So to some degree, an employee is getting an automatic 5% increase in their annual salary, and they've done nothing other than opt to participate in this program. For the employer, what they're seeing is again that reduction of $640 per employee per year, and what they also see is a reduction in their workers' compensation costs, and oftentimes they also see a reduction in their liability costs as well because their employees now have access, greater access, on demand access to healthcare coverage. The employee also sees a reduction in their, if they are on prescriptions, in their deductibles that they're paying, their co-pays that they're paying because they're utilizing our program. So we are showing employees how they can help their employers how to help their employees become healthier while at the same time showing employees how they can actually save money while still getting ideal and above board care through our program.
That's amazing. Most leaders treat benefits like a line item. You treat them like a system, right? What's the
Yes.
difference?
So from an accountant's perspective, right? So I see my healthcare costs cost me $1,000 a month per employee. It's just another expense that we're writing off against our expense line. But it's not every employee is not a profit center, so we just see it as it's just a write off, and it's sort of like sunk cost. What we're saying is if you design your system right, you begin to see that your employees and the healthcare costs can actually to some degree help you increase your cash flow and your profitability because we are showing you that you can actually do both. You can actually increase your access on your employees' access to better healthcare coverage while at the same time saving the organization money down the road. And it's not just in one moment; it's year over year as long as you keep this program in place. And many organizations that we've worked with, they see this as a no-brainer because it's like, where else can I find a way that I can provide my employees with greater coverage and it costs my employees nothing out of pocket and it costs me nothing out of pocket, but I, the employer, begin to save money in the process. So instead of looking at it like, well, it's just another expense and we're just going to cap this off and we're going to move on. This is really saying like, well, I can actually look at this as by me offering more, the employer, get more and the employees get more. So ideally, you have now shown your employees, I care for you in a way that many other organizations wouldn't do so. So this increases the probability of of an individual staying with an organization because it sees that you value them as individuals and their health more than maybe another employee.
Where do systems break first, Sean? Payroll, HR ops, broker process, carrier process, employee behavior?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to start with the cost is because most employees don't know what they have. They know they have, and I'm just going to call it catastrophic coverage, right? So if something goes wrong, I know I can pull out that little card and I could present it at the emergency room. I could present it at the doctor. I could present it anywhere I need emergent care. Where we haven't done a great job, I think, on the, and I call this employee education side, is letting folks know that, hey, by the way, you do know you have access to a way that you can get emergent or urgent, near urgent care in a system that's really a phone call away. So imagine in 3 to 5 minutes, you can get access to a medical professional who can say, hey, you know what? I think what you're experiencing right now requires greater care. Or like, hey, you know what? What you're telling me, and from what I can assess, this would be a good regimen for you. Right? And that way, it's like in 5 minutes, you've gotten to medical care. Now, if it's emergent, right? Like you're broken a bone and it's hanging off, and and it's hanging by a thread. It's like, you don't want to make a phone call to anyone other than maybe 911 to get an emergent ride somewhere. Or if if it's like you find yourself like, I just need to see someone because you're in a state of emergency. Yeah, this is not that. But what this is a way for an individual to actually get access quicker and oftentimes more reliably than they can if they call their local doctor. And I would just use my own example. I've been seeing my general practitioner for 20, well, see, I've been married 30 years. So almost 30 years now, right? We're all about the same age. We went to high school, college together. And so um, even for me, when I call her office, it's like, hey, Sean, you know my name. I appreciate you. I need an appointment. Oh, okay. Let me see when I can get you in. Oh, she can squeeze you in 2 weeks. Okay, great. That's fine. Oh, but if I need to see someone straight away, I'm gonna be honest with you. I I use my app, and that's who I'm talking to. But if I'm like, yeah, okay, it's just a regular checkup, and or if it's something that we've been working on. It's like, yeah, I'll make that appointment through her office and I'll wait the 3 weeks. But I can't wait 3 weeks if I'm coughing and I'm hacking up stuff, or if I have this headache that I just can't explain away. I can't wait 3 weeks to see her because by that time, our bodies begin to either go into critical decline, or it's like, you know what, it begins to modulate and brings us into a better state. So that's where the difference is in terms of where it starts. I think it starts with the employee because they don't understand how the system works. And by the way, when using our system, if they use the system the way that it's designed and through our education process, it actually helps the employer lower their renewal rates in successive years because they don't have the claims that they would have had against their carrier in successive years. So that's another way that through our education process, if we educate employees, we can find a way to actually prepare them to use a system that actually works best for them. Second, I think, is the notion that we have to go and see someone who will touch us and do some hand gesture around our face to see if it's congested. I believe 80% of Americans, when they are not well, they know what the cause is. And especially when we're talking about those things that are more common. So outside of a test that needs to be done or something that needs to happen to us or something that requires some sort of invasive or not, well, we call it non-invasive. So whether I'm giving sputum or I'm giving a saliva test or they spraying some stuff up my nose. I mean, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But it's like how many of those instances when we do go to the doctor don't require any of that, and we can actually just talk our way through a conversation with someone. And so that's where the system and the idea around doctors' appointments and visits to medical professionals, I think needs to be reshaped. Also, I think thirdly, and maybe lastly, is just the continual cost increases. So that's where I think it's just a system. And how do you contain cost? You can do those in a number of ways. And I don't think it's always around providing fewer services.
Love it. What are the top 3 myths leaders believe about benefits and payroll taxes?
Yeah, that's a good one because I think, and I'm trying to think just system wide, like what I've heard benefits. I can't afford it. right? The reason I don't provide it is I cannot afford it. More the reason that I'm reducing it is because I cannot afford it. And also that they have to trade personnel for benefits, which means that, if there's an increase on me, I need to pass that on to employees, and then, or we need to find a way to reduce our headcount in order to meet the increases that we're seeing in coverage. And then thirdly, I think around like what are another myth I think is that, it's a fixed system and I have to do exactly what it says on every dollar that's earned by an employee. And I think oftentimes what's missed is those opportunities that are out there and that they have access to, but some are afraid to utilize it because they have fear around one, it sounds too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, then it can't be working. Of course, my tort to that is, well, if major organizations are already doing it, if some municipalities are already in it, it has to be illegal, right? So don't believe that everything is about getting you to do something that's illegal. And I think there is a whole mistrust of what the medical field does have to offer to folks today, especially around healthcare coverage. Because, oh, well, I'm going to pay all this and I'm not going to get anything. Well, I can tell you as a user of the system, for our meds, for urgent care or near urgent care visits and conversations, so when you think you got the flu or you got a case of the upper respiratory issue going on or you're just not feeling yourself, it's like to have somebody in your pocket that you can call. By the way, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I can make that phone call. My doctor's not going to answer, by the way. Um, I can make that phone call. I can at least get someone to tell me a little bit. Something's going on with my baby. I don't quite understand it. It's like I've done all the things I know to do. I want to talk to somebody. And again, my pediatrician's not available. And so those are things that I can do, and things that I have access to. Or when I go to the pharmacy and I go to pick up meds, and it's on a monthly basis, it's $175 for my entire household. If I could find a way to bring that in, by the way, we did where we're paying less. I think we're now paying out of pocket still $20, but compare that to the 180 or 75 that we were paying at one time. It's like I can live with that. So these are the things that I think when looking at the Mets is like these things are too good to be true, and my employees aren't going to use it, or my employees are so sickly already, which is one that really blew me away. This one organization I spoke to talked about how sickly their employees were, and how is this going to help them get better care? And it's like, firstly, it gives them greater access, and the path to getting better is getting access. So if your employees aren't seeing the doctor because they have a $35 copay, well, issue number one is your system is broken. It's not about how sickly your group is. It's about them not being able to access the system because there's an automatic barrier to them getting access to the physicians or to the medical personnel. Our system actually removed that barrier because even in our system, you can have a primary care provider who is a consistent person that you can see. Also, you can get access to that near urgent care. And then the no copays and then no deductibles for meds. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer because if I can remove the barrier of copays and deductibles for employees, I've already again my situation, $175 now. Most folks will say, well, that's pennies. I'm like $175 if I'm only bringing in $2,000 a month. That's a little, that's a pretty substantial raise. That's almost a 10% raise every month coming into my house. That's how I look at it.
I love it. John, what are the most common mistakes businesses make when trying to solve healthcare costs?
I So I think that's a great one, right? So I think we often rely on our brokers to be the ones to sell our story, and I think we rely on that relationship to really usher in new things that are available to us. Brokers are a good space, and they're great people. But again, their job is also about maintaining that relationship and keeping that going on. I will tell anyone, and I know that I'm in the industry, I would tell anyone, it's like every 3 years, change brokers. See what's new out there. And not because you don't like your broker, not because you distrust them, but it's about seeing what others are able to bring to the table for you. And if you put that out every 3 years, it also allows your broker to really look at you with new vision every year, every 3 years. Liken it to what happens in the nonprofit arena with CPAs. The recommendation is periodically in every organization that I've worked in that was nonprofit. It was every 3 years. We looked at our CPAs and our auditors and saying, okay, we are going to put out this thing so that we can see what's going on out there, whether the cost is actually comparable to the market. And then thirdly, are we getting the best service that's available? So it keeps everybody aware of what's going on. So I think that's one mistake that a lot of employers make when considering healthcare costs. They are confident that their broker is doing everything possible for them. And they may be, but also keeping their eyes open for what else is out there and bringing it to their brokers. We work with brokers as well in terms of bringing our systems and products to them so that they can also educate their clients as well. The other mistake, I think, in terms of what employers make, I've alluded to this a number of times, it's like we are often quick when budgets get tight to look at headcount. And we forget sometimes that the greatest value is sitting in the expenses we already have and how we can actually maximize those to reduce our costs. And this is one of those programs that actually really says, no, continue doing what you're doing. In one instance, which is a municipality that I work with, they had $1 million issue that needed to be paid for, but they had no way of paying for it outside of raising taxes and reducing headcount. By implementing our program, they were able to find a way that they could actually reduce their cash outflows to pay the bond, and they did not have to go through the process of raising taxes on their residents. That is smart leadership in my purview because they knew that they needed to do something different. They didn't have to reduce the headcount. They didn't have to go to the taxpayers and say, can you pay more money? What they did was said, how can we do this smarter? How can we do this better? And we were able to show them how they could do that. And so that issue that they were having was with their water system and the delivery of that water to their town. They were able to pay for it as opposed to raising taxes to make it possible.
Sean, benefits touch trust. People feel it. What's the trust failure you see when companies handle this wrong?
One, I think employees are relying on employers to do a lot of the negotiating for them. And when looking at headcount and looking at benefits, it's often like, well, we've had in some instances this year alone, I've seen 18 and 22, and I think the highest I saw was like a 35% increase in premiums for one organization. And the response of leadership initially was, well, we'll bear some and then we'll give the others responsibility to the employees. But yet we're also telling our employees we can't afford to give you pay raises this year either. So we have effectively in that situation, they had effectively said to their employees, I'm cutting your pay and I don't see a way out of this in the years to come. So when they started getting those resignation notices and people starting to say, oh, by the way, I'm going to go work a second or third job, and they're just like, well, wait, what's going on? And it's like, well, our employees put faith in what we do and the decisions that we make. And that faith that they've put in us has been broken. And when there is broken trust, folks begin to think about self as opposed to community. And when you see that happening, that's when that attrition rate goes up. That's when folks start coming to work just to get their paycheck and they check out on what it means to be community. So when that trust is broken or when there's that trust failure component of it, a lot of it has to do with how did we handle the challenging times when they were with us? Did we say we got to cut you? But again, it's like I'm gonna, in our personal example, when one of my organizations, when we were seeing a decline in revenues, the first thing I got rid of was my executive assistant, right? However, let me say that differently. We repurposed that person's role because somebody was retiring out of another role within the organization. So that role effectively for the organization was absorbed somewhere else. but we were able to keep our employees according to our broker and all of their clients, we had one of the richest benefits packages in the entire region. But we were able to keep that in place because the question was around how do we do this, right? Because we also took on this program. How do we do this without reducing headcount? So we were able to go to the folks and say, you know what? Here are some truths. Revenues are down. We're not going to see any increases in terms of clients coming through the door. So we have to find a way to do that. But we are still giving raises, which we did. We're not increasing your premium in terms of percentage of participation. And we're actually going to make available to you an added benefit so that you can get these things because we know that the raise that we want to give you is not the raise that we will be able to give you and still remain viable as an organization. And that year, I had 95% retention. So that's when making decisions around individuals and what they do and ensuring that trust remains a part of the conversation becomes real because they were looking for leadership and we were able to provide them with what leadership was. Not that typical, all right, whoever just as I saw on the news yesterday, another organization, another 38,000 employees. It's like, yeah, that's real. Those are people, and how do you make better decisions? And I think the program that I'm talking about is one that actually offers them the opportunity to really say to their clients, we want to serve you and continue to serve you. And to our employees, we trust you to be in our stead, and we hope that you continue to trust us to work on your behalf. Because as a leader, we're here to serve the people, to help them achieve their greatest potential so that they can take on positions of greater responsibility. And that has to be a training process. And I know
Love
I think I veered off a little bit there, but in essence, trust is an essential part of the conversation, and you have to be an operator of trust in order to give trust to your folks, and they have to know that you are actually working for their benefit.
Love that, Sean. If I'm a business owner or a CFO listening, what are the first 5 questions I should ask my team tomorrow morning?
Are we better at what we said we were going to do? 2, are we taking care of the people who are taking care of us? How can we provide greater clarity to those who work with us so that they understand where it is that we're trying to go? You said 3 or 5. I don't remember the number.
5, that was 3.
I think the next one is how are our clients perceiving what value we're bringing to them? And lastly, I think a question would be around what is it that we need to stop doing, or what is it that's getting in the way of the work that we're doing that we need to stop doing?
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about strategy and not being too technical. Without being too technical, right? Walk me through the structure of how companies can reduce payroll taxes and improve benefits without spending more.
Okay, sure. So one, of course, I'm going to be very myopic but very transparent at this point. And so one, if you really want to understand what the process is, let's have a conversation, right? So let's start that conversation about what enhanced health program is and what it means for the employees within your organization. Once we get on that call, then we will talk about what are some things that we need of you in order for us to give you a proposal that says, this is what it means for your organization. And then from there, you, the employer, makes the decision about whether or not this is something that's good for you. All I can say is about 66% of the folks that we talk to, once we get to that proposal, they say yes, because it's a no-brainer around what it is that we are bringing to the table. And I don't mean to insult anybody by saying it's a no-brainer, but the reality is, if someone, when I was running an organization, and I will tell you so as a former school superintendent, running an organization with 1,000 plus employees, someone came to me and said they could save me $640 per employee. I'm instantly thinking that's $640,000 that I can save in 1 year. What can I do with almost $500,000 of savings in a school district? So I could tell you, we're always looking for ways to actually have more teachers in the classroom, right? We're also looking for ways to for the facilities that we have. How do we pay for some of the repairs in those facilities? How do we ensure that our transportation is up to par? When I was another organization, nonprofit organization, the question around if I could save for that, what was that, for the 150 employees I had under my stead, what would $640,000, I'm sorry, $640 per employee do for me as an organization? 150 employees, right? This is totally rounding error. I'm rounding right now, so and I'm just going to say what's six times 150? So what can I do with an extra $90,000 a year? Well, let me tell you, in that nonprofit organization, that would have meant we were able to house, right, elderly, 5 more elderly clients every year.
So you mentioned about 60% would agree to working with you, which is a no-brainer. I'm thinking it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, why not 100%? Who are the 40%?
Yeah, I mean, there are some nuances that come into play, right? Things that we don't have control over. So, as an example, an organization may say, "Well, the benefit to our employees," or they may already have a benefit once they look into it. Some of them are in a position where they aren't willing to offer another benefit to their employees, so they are actually saying no to actually better their employees. And then for some organizations, and I would say based on their taxing structure, they just would not qualify for the program. But like I mentioned municipalities, I mentioned school districts, I mentioned nonprofit organizations, I mentioned for-profit organizations. I think I mentioned, yeah, the air conditioning company, the for-profit organizations. So really, and the only other caveat to that would be if somebody has fewer than 5 employees.
I see. So
That
you're
would
looking at
so
you're
yeah.
looking at larger organizations. What's your buy box?
So explain, what do you mean by buy box?
How many employees would you like to see in their organization to offer this program?
At least 10.
10. Okay.
Yeah.
Up to
It's not
up
second.
to up to how much?
Yeah, so the within my network, I think our largest employer has about 15,000 employees.
That's a big
It
employer.
it took us, I will say, our organization, it took us about 2 years to onboard everyone in that organization because that organization wanted to do it by section. So that was on them, not on us.
Understood. Excellent. So what's the real timeline and what does implementation require from a company?
Yeah, so timeline is we can work as fast as the organization does. So the quickest organization that I personally onboarded was 30 days. So from I had a conversation at the beginning of the month, they made a decision by middle of the month. They had their employees in a conversation by the end of the month. By the beginning of the next month, their plan was actually active. That's the shortest. So it happens as fast as the organization can. What's needed of anyone who's wanting to have this conversation is, schedule a call with me. Then we ask you for a modified census. We try to get that census from you before we have our first call, so that we can be so that we're talking about real numbers at that point. And then from there, we give you a proposal. So from a discovery call, as we call it, to the proposal can be as short as 5 days.
Well, okay. Who needs to be involved? HR,
Decision makers.
CFO, payroll, leadership?
So we like to talk to the decision makers in the process. We do appreciate when HR folks are on the phone call because they understand usually like what's happening behind the scenes, and also your CFOs and your CEOs, because we want the person who's actually going to sign the master service agreement on the conversation so that they understand what's going on. And we do understand like there's some strata issues that come aboard with larger organizations. So we are willing to work with organizations of all sizes. I think also what we want to be clear on is our process and our system is not heavy HR burden. We actually take away some of the burden from HR in the process because we know what it can be like. So there are a number of systems that we work with where we actually tap right into your payroll folks and we get the census for you if you give us permission to do so. So we are actually taking on a lot of the burden from the organization. Also, even during enrollment, we're the ones making the phone calls. We're the ones reaching out to employees. We're the ones scheduling the calls. So we want payroll or human resources to really just, one, champion it, But at the same time, we're the ones who are going to do the work so that HR is not involved in the process because we know the burden that they already carry within organizations and we don't want to add any additional work to them. So the pathway looks much like this. There's a discovery call, then we get a census, then we do a proposal call, then we have a step forward, then we have a conversation about whether this is good for you or not after that proposal call. And then we start, if you say yes, we start signing up the paperwork and we start onboarding. Again, that's on us. And then we agree upon a design time for the program to go into place. So it's again, I think the path is really straightforward, and it's also one that I think works well with organizations. And again, we're not asking them to change their healthcare carriers. We're not asking them to change their brokers. We're not asking them to even change who they work with, other than, of course, adding us as a vendor for them. But our system is really about finding ways to give them the greatest benefit with the most bang without them having to cut any healthcare costs for helping them to cut healthcare costs related to employee benefits while giving employees the opportunity to get rid of co-pays and deductibles and receiving healthcare services.
What's the common bottleneck?
Bottlenecks are usually around personnel who are either, and I'm just going to be frank, is people are afraid to make decisions and they don't want to get it wrong. And it's like, the great thing about this process and this program is like, if you don't like it, you just stop it. You just say you're not interested anymore. You move on. Now the question is, what happens to your employees? They may say differently. That's one bottleneck, and the other one is just lack of decision making within organizations. Because oftentimes, I can tell you, I was working with one very large school district with about 7,000 employees, and the decision makers were just stalling because they were just like, well, we're not sure if this is something our employees will use. And I'm like, it's got to blow my mind. It's like, how can you not be sure? I said, in my world, even if 50% of your employees use it, it's a win. Even if 30% of them use it, it's a win because it is still for that district. It was still a win for them to participate in the program because what it would have meant for them is just around, I think it was $1.2 million, not chump change.
Sean, what makes it smooth?
So I think what makes it smooth is that we're not asking much of our HR folks in the process. It's like, again, championing it. If you give us access to your census data, we take it from there. We do the phone calls with employees. We do the community conversations, especially for larger organizations. We actually go into those individual sites, especially in like the one school district, which had, I think it was 45 different campuses. We go to each campus. We have those conversations with personnel. We have them in person, and we also do them virtually. And then there's also 24/7 access. If someone says, I don't care if you come to my campus and you sit in my classroom, I'm not going to listen to you. Or you come to my office and you sit in the middle of the floor, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to ignore you. So that 24/7 access, I think, is one that really rings and resonates with a lot of folks because they can do a lot of that work outside of others. And then I think also the fact that we are a cost neutral program, I think, is what makes it also very easy. And what I mean by cost neutral is we are actually lowering costs for the employee and we're lowering costs for the employer in the process. Not many benefits can go out there and say, because I do have some other benefits that we do offer, and I can tell you it costs.
Let's talk a little bit about AI. We are the AI Edge podcast,
Yes.
right? And so if we keep it real, where does AI automation generally help in this process? Not hype, actual leverage.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this process where AI comes in is that ability to connect in individuals to actual care quicker, as well as to give them care more often with AI. So as an example, if I go see my doctor, I see that doctor once. But if I have any follow-up questions, what happens? In this process, it's like, hey, I saw somebody at 4 o'clock this morning. I did A, B, and C. It's now 6 o'clock, in the evening, and I'm still getting someone who's available to talk with me. US based doctors and practitioners. So it's not like well, anyway, it's not like you talk to somebody in 40 different countries who are like, yeah, I don't know either. But you talk to folks who are here and who are immediately available to you. So that's something I think that AI is doing a really great job at. Also, the follow up calls that come when someone does see one of our representatives, practitioners, they get to get that follow up call. It's like, hey, we know you came on at 4 this morning. We gave you a remedy. It's now 6 o'clock. Want to make sure that things are going well. Or also, it's like, if you call that number, when that assistant, the automated assistant picks up, they're saying, hey, Sean, how's it going? Well, we saw you call this morning. What's going on? Right. And so it's those things, that automation, I think, is making the conversation and the time spent better for individuals. And I think that's only going to get better as time moves on. So, I remember the days of old where, you had to press one if you want, press two if you needed this. This is one of those systems where it's all spoken language. And so I think as AI is becoming more streamlined and things are getting really better, there will be real conversations and exhaustive conversations had at the touch. Well, I would say at the touch of a phone, but it is the touch of a phone now that you can get access to a lot more information. So I think the AI automation, is actually making it so that healthcare coverage is more accessible and is less nuanced or is less nebulous for a lot of folks. So and I'm thinking about some folks who are are in terrible situations where there's like, oh, I don't go see a doctor except if my finger's falling off, where that person could actually go in the closet and say, by the way, I need a little help here today. So it's not that big thing. And one thing I did not mention as well is and I also feel a little bit remiss by not saying that, is the mental health component of it that is available to folks that makes getting help a lot faster, more efficient. And again, you're getting it from qualified licensed therapists. It's immeasurable.
Are you using it for enrollment workflows?
Correct? Yes.
You are?
So
Employee communication? Yep.
employee communications, workflows, conversations with folks around different things that it's like would have taken me, moments to research and then get back to someone. I can actually have a conversation with someone almost immediately, like the nuance of, well, I got this kind of situation going on. I can actually tax into I'll just call it the pool of information that's out there that has been created. I'm not just relying on self to put some things through. So enrolling employees or clients, educating folks around what's available and out there for them. And then also when folks are calling in or when folks are needing direction, that information is readily available. And then you're getting more consistent, I think, information than maybe you would have gotten in times past. And so I think it also helps with ensuring that, and I don't want to say everybody gets treated the same, but it's like it's where the information is being routed in a way that the individual receiving it understands it, but it's consistent around the context of the information.
Beautiful. You've got organizations with big budgets and big constraints. When leaders are under pressure, what decision-making habits separate great operators from average ones?
That's a large one. So one, I think it's around what's your purpose, and I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. It's around serving others and finding out like what their goals, aspiration, dreams, and challenges are, and helping them work through those. I think your average leader is going to just figure out like what makes the organization tick, and they're going to go and follow the thing that brings in the most amount of money. I think there's an opportunity when you know your purpose and you know your calling, that you can actually say, I can make the most amount of money and I can help people reach their greatest potential. So I think what separates great leaders from, and I'll call them middle of the road leaders, is both can achieve the benefit of the organization. I think the difference is who have you brought along with you, and who have you cultivated to take on your position. For me, it has always been about who is near me to take on this position? Because if, I would always say things, most times you would hear something like, well, if I get hit by a bus, well, I'm like, if I win the lottery, I'm not showing up. I mean, I know I need to play, so that's problem number one. No,
Someone
but
needs
the
to
other
figure this out.
But the other side of that is what's going to happen to you when I leave? Who's going to move this organization forward? Because when I'm gone, I'm gone. And so did I grow folks in a way that again help them achieve their greatest potential? One of the other examples to that is when it's like not necessarily when I leave or die or win the lottery, but when I am ready to make a decision that I no longer want to be in this organization, did I give you the tools you need to run this ship? Or did I give you the tools you need to go out and run other organizations? Because maybe this organization is your building ground, and those other organizations is where you begin to build ground for others. So are you doing that work? So that difference is really around, am I coaching, supporting, and placing people in position that they can take on greater and better responsibility? To me, that's what's considered a high road leader. The middle road leader is just that person who says, I just want to get to the end goal. And the low road leader is that guy that says, I'm going to get there and I'm going to get all I can while I get.
I was just going to ask you, what do bad leaders do, Sean?
Yeah, it's all about me. It's about me and what I get. And it has nothing to do with the people who are around me. Just bad leaders. I mean, and we have many examples in history around what bad leaders do and how they do the bad things to the people. We could talk about the benevolence of an individual, and it's like we're only as benevolent as our heart. And so for bad leaders, it's like I could actually lead you to the promised land while at the same time tearing you down, right? Or I could lead you to the promised land and actually never make it to the promised land, but put you on a path and be okay with that. A bad leader would never take that stance.
I see. Sean, you've been CFO, a CEO, head of school, led teams from 40 to 5,000, multi-million dollar budgets. What did you learn the hard way that makes you uniquely qualified to talk about this?
So I think one is sometimes when looking at like who we are natural, what's our natural tendency. So I'm an introvert. So naturally, it's like I just want to go in my corner. I want to do my work. I don't, it's like I know people exist and I really want to be a part of them, but it's like at the same time, I like my isolation. So I think what I've learned over the process and through growth, constant learning is what you have to be in. That state that no matter where I am, what I'm doing, I need to be growing and learning myself because it's the only way that I can also help others achieve what their next best is as well. Hard learning was the fact that I got to get out of that shell. I was able to work with my team, um, and then when I needed to go outside of my team, it got a little clammy. And it's like, well, I need to get from that. So that notion of finding a way to build my own capacity so that I could actually understand and feel what others are going through without becoming so emotional, wreck. It's like you can actually help people get to where they need to get to, still be an introvert, and you need to do this by way of growing your own personal capacity. So self development became an important component of it. And it was learned the hard way because trying to lead, because when I would just say, when I was catapulted from being a CFO to being a CEO, it was just like, whoa, this is very different. I can't just tell people what needs to be done because everything isn't so cut and dry. Things require deliberation. And so learning how to work in teams of people who are not accountant types have a certain type of personality. So yes, lesson learned the hard way, how to bring people into the fold. And also knowing when being right also means being wrong. COVID showed me how how they can actually spiral and when it's time to walk away. How an organization can be run while at the same time experiencing great turmoil and how important it was to have people around me who were prepared for that next level of leadership. And sometimes you can push people into leadership too fast.
Beautiful.
So that was one of those times when I'm like, I should have waited a little longer for a certain person before they were able to take on that next role. And also, I think because there was so much going on with COVID, it was not having those conversations as directly because there was the physical issue of what was happening with individuals, and then there was the mental and the social emotional component that was happening with individuals. And I think to some degree, I shied away from the conversations I would have had because of the psychological toll that was happening on folks. So yeah, lesson learned is irrespective of psychological issues, address them directly.
Beautiful, Sean. Let's talk a little bit about best client. Who is this best for? What type of company gets the biggest impact?
So I think it's a company who has somewhere between 20 and 100 employees, because it's like they're in um, margins that are really tight, and they get to see the benefit straight away. Nonprofits, I believe, also is like the second best client because it's like they can see at the end of every pay period where they are actually putting fewer dollars out into expenses, so they get to see the benefit of that. And then when they can service more clients, in whatever aspect that is, that actually I think gives those folks in those nonprofit organizations, that gives them that sense that they are really doing their best work. And that's not to mean that for-profit organizations aren't also doing that, but because I do know there are a number of for-profit organizations who have actually said we can now support one of the local charities because they now have more cash on hand. So I mean, it's like when you hear organizations talk about things like that, then it's like I'm doing really good work. I'm not just out here filling my own coffers. I'm actually helping people who are helping people, and that to me speaks volumes for what we're doing. So best client, it is somewhere less than 100, and also those who are like, yeah, with more money we can do this in terms of providing better services for their internal clients or their employees, or that they're saying, yeah, we can now support this other organization external to them. So those are good clients.
Who should not do it,
That's a good one.
buddy? Everybody should do it. Come on, who are you kidding?
Who should not? If you change your mind as quickly as you change your clothes,
Ooh, we don't like them.
right? Because you'll never see the benefit because you're always chasing the next best or you're always chasing the newest fashion. This is not a fashion statement. This is a statement of what good leadership does. When margins are tight, then healthcare costs are rising.
Love it, Sean. Let's have a little bit of fun. Rapid fire. Are you ready?
Okay, all right.
The biggest silent cost most companies ignore is
FICA tax.
if your benefit strategy is broken, first symptom is
Call Sean Wilson.
perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
The best leaders protect margins by
Taking care of their people.
one question every CFO should ask their broker is
this the best you can do? What else is out there? So, let's say what else is out there?
okay. A good benefit strategy should feel like
Who? Like it should be a place of comfort, a place of real rest, like you've made a solid decision and you can rest with trust that it's like this is the best.
if you're afraid to change benefits, remember
Dr. Sean Wilson at Manoah Consulting.
I love it. Sean, for the people who want to go deeper, where's the best place to find Dr. Sean Wilson and Manoah Consulting?
Yeah, so you can find us so there are a number of ways to get to us. So one is savings.manoahconsulting.com. And you can find everything there is to know about us and also about the programs that we do offer. Also, I'm one that's available by phone, and that is 817-271-7766. I will always encourage you to leave a message. And because in a couple of weeks, when my AI agent picks up, my AI employee picks up, she's going to tell you some things and she's going to lead you back to some spaces, but I want to talk to you. So that's another way to get in touch. And by the way, every phone call is returned by a live human.
Perfect. We'll drop all of that in the show notes. Sean, I really appreciate you coming out and breaking this down. What you shared isn't theory, it's real world strategy that affects margin, people, and long term stability. To everyone listening, if this episode made you rethink payroll costs, benefits, and how your organization actually makes decisions, share it with a CFO, HR leader, or an operator who needs to hear it. This has been the AI Edge podcast, where we unpack how systems, leadership, and technology actually shape outcomes in the real world. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Louis. I appreciate you having me, and it's been an honor.